and gentlemen, to Season 11. We're here with Round 1. It's a brand new day for the Sim Racing Alliance. It's going to be a little bit more punishing out here during qualifying.
It's definitely a hard one here. It's what it's like. It's very, very punishing.
For all the way in Germany, this will be the first time we see this in the team series here. This is a track where you will be driving the track, not as much driving the drivers on the track.
Very brave is the Ferrari to get the move done.
He does get the position done.
Oh, huge contact, and they're both going to go around. It's going to be a huge move up the inside.
He's been using every bit of the track.
Pedal to the metal, foot to the floor.
And we're off and away for SRA.
That is right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sim Racing Alliance GT3 Team Series. You are tuned into the Division 3 stream. We're here at Brands Hatch for the penultimate race of this Season 12. My name is Philip Mueller. As always, thank you for having me. My co-host, Donovan Colton, is absent once again this week. He's on the road, returning from his little road trip, visiting family, so we wish him safe travels. We're excited to have him back next week for what will be the final race at Kyalami, so make sure you're here for that. It's going to be a wild race. We're excited to see the conclusion of some of these championship battles. Speaking of which, we have a lot to discuss, so let us jump right into the standings page. As you can see at the top of your screen, number 1, John Laz in the black and gold racing Porsche. 414 points, holding the overall first place, but close behind, only 22 points behind, we got Caleb Craig in the Bentley of all cars. Not only is he number 2 in the overall, that is your top silver driver, ladies and gentlemen. We got to point it out. The silver battle it's just the Caleb Craig show, right? Number 2, Caleb Craig, 392 points. Looking a little bit further down your screen, our other silver drivers, we got Mr. Russell Allen, Mr. Zipperbird, Mr. Johnston, showing up on your screen, P11, 12, and 13. Kind of, they're a little far back from Caleb Craig. He's got just a stronghold on this silver championship. We'll have to keep our eyes on it, but so far he's doing pretty well, if I do say so myself. Taking a look at the team championship, though, this is a tight battle. So up top, we got the Stealth Panda Racing team and the Lexi? I don't know. Tell me what the plural of Lexus is. Number 2, we got the Bentley team. Number 3, we've got Pat Cockcroft and Russell Allen in the Porsche, Plan E Racing. Then we've got the Midfield Masters boys. All 4 of these teams within 200 points of each other with 2 rounds left in this season. The team championship, super hot. It's anybody's race. I'm very excited to see what these drivers can do. Taking a look at the track map, as I said, we are at Brands Hatch over in England. It's pretty tricky track, challenging track. You're looking at the track map. So for example, let's look at turns 5 and 6. You're thinking, oh, these are easy, right? These are basic, just 90-degree right-handers, nothing special, right? I'm telling you, man, this is a super quick, super technical track. These drivers have to put a lot of work into kind of perfecting not only their setups, but their racing lines. They got to practice their race pace with full fuel. I am expecting a fair bit of action. Not a whole lot of runoff on the side of this track. Very punishing, and it's gonna be a good one. So our qualifying session is starting. So if I may just click a couple buttons and get us over to, we're gonna fix our HUD a little bit. Wow. Confirm, back, drive. If you'll just bear with me for a second. So, as I said, we're here on our qualifying session. Let us jump on board, first of all, with Mr. Martin Riggs. So, as I said, our Comic Racing Bentley team pretty high up in the team championship standings. This Bentley, you know, I gotta say, it's an off-meta car, but Mr. Riggs and Mr. Caleb Craig have done just an outstanding job of representing. Let's take a look at the interior. The right-hand drive Bentley car. I love seeing it on the grid. It's a fantastic car. It sounds great, and looking forward to seeing what these boys can do in this qualifying session. So 18 minutes on the board. Our drivers are just now starting to get their first flying laps going. Looks like our first driver out on track is Mr. Caleb Craig in the number 568 car. So as we go through both this race and this qualifying session, you might see a couple times I'm going to push this button here. I'm pushing escape, so we're seeing, if you might not be able to see it, our sponsors might be in the way, but so at the top right of your screen we're seeing the temperatures 1818 and the track right now. The big storyline of this qualifying session is the track is starting fast, right? In Assetto Corsa Competizione, we've got a fast track, and when it gets rubbered in and gets up to temperature, the track goes optimum. Because this session is starting out fast, our silver drivers here going to be at a bit of a disadvantage compared to our gold drivers who are coming out 10 minutes later. So we're going to have to keep an eye on how our silver drivers fare overall. We do, of course, have to pay special attention to not only this man here, Jason Yaron, in the Ferrari 455. So we always do our leaderboard looks, right? Our top time on the practice leaderboard, you're looking at him right here, Mr. Jason Yaron in the Burger Beast Ferrari 488. It's the old one. It's not the 296. The 488 Ferrari, he set a 1:23.300 in the practice leaderboards. Our top time, he is also our he's my pick for our silver drivers, but again, because of the disadvantage of going out first and the track only being fast, we have to see, will Jason Yaron be able to kind of manifest that pace and put a good time up on the leaderboard in this qualifying session. So coming around the final turn here, kind of just getting everything up to temperatures. You know, 1818 track and ambient is a little on the cold side. So certainly this first lap, even though it was a flying lap, you would expect that, you know, nobody's really showing their true pace here. The top time on the board, as you can see, is Caleb Craig, a 1:24.627. That's going to come way down. I promise you that. Number 2 on the board, you'll love to see it. We've got screen freeze. Oh boy. Please hold. My game is protesting a bit. We are trying to get a good view of anybody here. We were trying to look at Jay Queasy, but maybe the internet from the other side of the pond was not allowing me to do so. I had to skip right over the top of him and go to Mr. Zipperburn, currently showing up in, well, he's been dropped now to 5th place. He was 3rd at the time because Martin Riggs now has crossed the line with a bit of an improvement on those times, a 1:24.475, getting himself up into P2. So very good showing so far from both of our Comic Bentley boys. As I say that, Uday Dillon, the underdog, this guy, I love to see his livery. I love to see him do well. The Herberth Motorsports Porsche, that kind of, what is it, the John Flyer special black and gold livery on this Porsche. Very good. Got himself, at the time it was up into P2, but immediately the man, the myth, the legend, Jason Yaron, getting himself right up onto provisional pole, a 1:24.185. Well done to him. Got 14 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. So you would expect these guys should all have, I'm going to assume, 3 more, if not 4 more opportunities at a flying lap. we see Caleb Craig taking that provisional pole right back, a 123.885. Well done to him. I'm going to come back over here super quick, push this button. So as you can see, top right of your screen, the track is still fast. It has not yet gone optimum. We're going to have to see what that means as this qualifying session goes on. We've got a big improvement on the board. Mr. Uday Dillon is over a half of a second up on his previous best. As he crosses the line, it will promote him up into provisional pole, a 123.797. Well done to Mr. Uday Dillon. Jumping back on board with Mr. Jason Yaron as he crosses the line. Small improvement from him. Does manage a couple of tenths of an improvement, but not enough to pass Caleb Craig, 124.002, and he will have time for 3 more laps. Keeping an eye on him as he goes. Looking a little further down the board. We've got Mr. Richie Wood and the BD Red Eye McLaren, sponsored by Boddington's. Not sure if it's a pale ale or an amber or a whatever, but it's tasty stuff, so you love to see it. Somebody off track ahead. Hopefully that won't... Oh man, that would... he didn't impede that. I believe that was a Mercedes off track, either Holmes or Wazinski. Yeah, Mr. Wazinski. You know, he wasn't on track. He didn't physically impede Richie Wood, but a car stopped on the inside like that. That would certainly be enough to put me off my lap. Richie Wood, though, undeterred, getting himself a small promotion from 9th to 7th overall with a 124.430. Looking back up ahead, we've still got Mr. Caleb Craig sitting on provisional pole. Time for 2 more laps. A small improvement on the board. We'll see how he progresses. His teammate, Mr. Martin Riggs, currently sitting P4, hoping to make a little bit of a jump with his final 2 laps. Taking a look at Mr. Mike Cowley of the Riot Motorsports Ferrari 296. This is the newer Ferrari, currently sitting down in P12, but a good improvement on the Delta. We'll see if he can hang on to this and convert it into a bit of a promotion. But as Caleb Craig rounds the final turn, approaching the start and finish line, he's got about a quarter of a second up on his Delta. He will improve his time even further to a 123.337. I will remind you that Jason Yaron's best from the practice servers was a 123.300, so only 37 thousandths off of that time, which again, on a fast track, this Bentley is unstoppable. What is even going on today? Caleb Craig on a fast track, just smashing the timesheets right now. Looking a little bit further down, so we see Mr. Uday Dillon still hanging out in P2. He'll have time for 1 more lap, see if he can manage an improvement there. Jason Yaron still sitting a provisional P3, about to start his final flying lap. Martin Riggs, as he comes through this tricky, starting the 3rd sector now, taking all of the curb on the inside, all of the curb, and even a little bit of grass on the outside. He's 2 tenths up on his Delta. Gonna have to stay on board with this Bentley to see if he can convert this improvement into a respectable final time. Currently sitting a PB of 24.117, hoping to get into the 23s as he comes through this tricky final corner, keeping it well within track limits, well up on the Delta, and indeed as he crosses the line, Mr. Martin Riggs getting himself up into P3 with a 123.882. So well done to him. We've got Caleb Craig on his lap. I'm looking at my mini-map here. So Mr. Jeremy Yaron, the other Yaron brother in the other Ferrari 488, not on for any sort of improvement here. So P8 is where he will stay for now. Looking 1 slot back. So his brother, though, Jason Yarin, a big improvement on the board, 0.3 on the delta, and as he crosses the line, he will get himself up to P2, provisional with a celebratory slam into the wall. Well done to him, a 1:23.690, fantastic time. We appear to only have one silver driver left out on track. That is our provisional pole sitter, Caleb Craig. He had crossed the line with a 1:23.337. As he comes through this last turn, he is attempting a small improvement. He's about even on the delta. Crossing the line, it was a difference of 0.02 of a second. Consistent qualifying pace. Hopefully we can convert that into some consistent race pace. So well done, Caleb Craig, your provisional pole sitter, a 1:23.337. We got to push the button again. The track is still fast, and so is Mr. Caleb Craig. So our gold drivers are out on track now. These second 10 minutes, as always, is devoted to our gold drivers on board here with Mr. Pat Cockcroft of the Plan E Racing Porsche team. It's an upside-down Ferrari logo on the side of that car, but he is driving a Porsche. Don't worry, that confuses me too. Followed closely behind, perhaps the best livery on track. This is Justin McKechnie in the GRR Bailey Mobile. That is the face of Bailey Kish adorning his car. So looking at my minimap here, I see number 612, who is Mr. John Laz. So this is our overall P1 in the individual standings. He doesn't have a teammate, so he's unfortunately nowhere in the team standings, but all by himself, he has done an amazing job. Not always on the top step of the podium, but he has had just such consistency that John Laz, overall points leader at the moment, crossing the line here, setting his first flying lap in this qualifying session, a 1:24.780. Again, though, just getting everything up to temperature, so don't worry too much about the spread right now. He's going to have plenty more opportunities to put in a good qualifying time. Mr. John Laz, followed by Mr. Colin Shea of the Stefaz Designs Champion Motorsport team in the Ferrari 296. A beautiful car and a beautiful first time, actually equal to John Laz, both setting identical times, a 1:24.780. Hoping to put a bit of an improvement on the board, though a fair bit of traffic ahead. If I may click the bonnet cam for a second, pretty short gap to Mr. Justin McKechnie up ahead. You know, I wonder, should I have left a little bit more space for myself so that in case the driver ahead of me makes a mistake, I don't get too impeded by that? I don't know. It's tactics. That's just me. But Mr. Colin Shea, not too worried about it, with a good improvement on the board. Mr. Wilder Vargas of the TC8 Racing team, also quite high. Whoa, we've got an off-track ahead. That was one of our Panda Racing Lexus boys. That's Mr. Curtis Lee, pushing perhaps a bit too hard through that. That is the second to last left-hand turn. So that lap is a wash. But hey, at the very least, his tires are nice and warmed up now. So Mr. Curtis Lee crossing the line, hoping to get another couple shots. We've got 5 minutes and 20 seconds left on the board, so plenty of time to put in a fast lap. As we see, Mr. John Laz crosses the line with a 1:23.822, enough for provisional 5th place. Well done to him. We've got Zodi Fade so far, our second best gold time, followed closely by Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton in the Cool Runnings GRR Motorsport McLaren. We have also had Mr. Derek Schweppe in the Riot Motorsport Ferrari 296. You love that two-toned livery, currently sitting P14, hoping to make an improvement on his next lap. We had John Laz, our top gold driver, must have had a bit of an off-track. He returned to pits, potentially for a new set of tires. There we go, dropping off the air jacks and leaving the pits now. 4 minutes and 15 seconds left on the board, so he should have time to do this outlap plus 3 more flying laps. So plenty of time, no worries there. Mr. John Laz currently sitting P5, looking to see him make a big jump. Speaking of big jumps, Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton down in 16th place currently as he comes through this final turn over the start-finish line. A good improvement on the Delta will be enough to get himself up into P11 overall, and Mark Anthony Eaton as well, deciding that at this point in time it's better to return to garage, get a fresh set of rubber, and then get back out on track and try again. Interesting strategy both from John Laz and from Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton. We see Derek Schweppe crossing the line with a good improvement on his Delta as well, enough to get himself up into P13 overall. Well done to him. Looking a little bit further down, we've got Mr. Justin McKechnie, if the camera can find him. My goodness, that was an odd one. In the GRR Bailey Mobile, 28th, but oh, a bit of an off track. That's an oopsie. We're going to stop cursing him. We're going to go instead with Mr. Wilder Vargas, currently P25, but a huge improvement on the Delta, currently sitting about 8/10 up, and as long as he is not impeded by the Ferrari ahead as he comes through the final corner onto the start-finish straight, Mr. Wilder Vargas with a near 9/10 improvement on his Delta will see himself up into P6 with a 123.990. Very well done. In the meantime, we also had Zodi Fade, an excellent improvement from him as well at 123.935, getting himself up into actually stealing P6 from Mr. Vargas. We've got Schweppe currently P16, 4/10 up on his Delta, 5/10 now coming through this final turn. Losing a bit of drive. I believe he went a little wide into the braking zone there. He's going to lose almost all of that improvement. Only about 2/10 up on his former PB, but with 1 minute and 55 seconds left on the board, he will have time for 2 more laps for sure. So Derek Schweppe, we're rooting for him here, hoping to put a big improvement on the board. The other TC8 racing team, McLaren, in the meantime, Mr. Samuel Cortez getting himself up into P9 with a 124.175. Again, time for 2 more laps, so hoping for a bit of an improvement out of him, about even on his Delta right now. We'll see how he can get it through over the curbing of that fast right-hander. You can see it upset the car a bit, flicked him off track, so that lap will be invalid, but he will have time for 1 more. Don't worry about it. I'm not cursing anybody. So don't say it in the chat. I am not jinxing anybody. There is no commentator's curse. Mr. Samuel Cortez, we're going to see good things out of him. Don't you worry about it. As Mr. Robert Almeida, now coming out of the final turn, crossing the start and finish line, will be promoting himself up into P8 with a 124.027. Fantastically well done out of him. His teammate, Mr. Phil Brown, in the other PHR taxi BMW, similarly out of this last turn, about a half a second up on his previous best, and it must have been invalid in some way because it wasn't an improvement at all. So sorry about that. He's got 1 more chance though. Don't you guys worry about it at all. So the big story here, I suppose, has to be, so the track has now gone optimum, right? If you're looking in your top left, the track is now optimum. John Laz, as he comes across the line here for the final time, P5 will not have any sort of improvement on the board. Unable to even touch Caleb Craig, Yaron Dylan Riggs, the silver drivers dominating this qualifying session so far. I wonder, is there anybody left on track who has a chance? We've got Wilder Vargas. He's got the checkered flags on his name. I believe that means his session is done. Almeida crossing the line for the last time. No improvement on the board. I think this one is over, ladies and gentlemen. I think the Bentley just threw it down. Caleb Craig, Martin Riggs, the silver drivers on the fast track. Absolutely untouchable. Schweppe crossing the line, no improvement. The last man left out on track, Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton, a small improvement on the Delta, but it's not going to be anywhere near enough to touch the boys at the top. So from our gold drivers, we had John Laz, Zodi Fade, Vargas Almeida Watts, but yeah, unable to touch the silver drivers. So well done to them. Clicking over now to our sponsor scene. This is the time where we always have to give a big shout out to all of our community supporters, sponsors, and title sponsors. Big shout outs to all the names on the screens. And here we go. We're going to throw it over to Mr. Jay Queasy for our sponsor read.
A huge thank you to our SRA sponsors and title sponsors for supporting us here at SRA, as well as support from Documise, a modern business solution for product management. Go to documise.com to learn more today. And support from Retro Saga, a North American-based gaming company that provides accessories for your favourite classic systems, including Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, and much more. Enhance your retro gaming experience today at retrosaga.ca. And a big thank you to our affiliates, Track Racer. Experience redefined gaming with Track Racer's high quality sim rigs and accessories. Use code SRATE at checkout to support us. Armamentario, a toolbox for ACC that will enhance your chance to win. Enjoy a fully customizable and enhanced HUD to change the way you experience ACC. AT 3D Sim Shop. Upgrade your sim racing experience today with premium 3D printed accessories featuring precision crafted magnetic shifters, sleek cable management solutions, versatile stream deck mounts, and immersive dashboard displays. Their innovative designs enhance performance and style, elevate every lap with top tier quality and craftsmanship at at3d.net. Go Setups, premium esports setups for everybody. Use our affiliate link on our Discord and take your drive to the next level. Castle and Cauldron, a home-based crafting business specializing in handmade Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts and Fairy World collectibles. Magic wands, potions, mini dioramas, wall decor, costumery, cosplay, and much more. Castle and Cauldron is where crafting meets the magical. Visit facebook.com/Castle Cauldron. And from KP Concepts, your source for custom automotive renderings, graphic design, and printing. We spend countless hours making you look all good for the spectacle. Check out kpconcepts.com for more.
So, once again, and as always, thank you very much to Mr. Jay Queasy in the same way that Coadromo of KP Concepts spends countless hours making you look good with his graphic design work. Mr. Jay Queasy doing the work, putting in the hours for the SRA content production team. He does the streams. He does the graphic design. He even does the sponsor read now. This man, this man does it all. So, jumping into our race scene, our drivers here on their sighting lap. We have Mr. Caleb Craig in the Comic Racing Bentley out front. This is always our time where we have to give special attention to all the beautiful liveries that our community members come up with. The Comic Racing graphics design team, unparalleled. The Burger Beast. Uday Dillon with that beautiful black and gold Porsche. The other black and gold Porsche, not teammates by the way, but running similar liveries. Zodi Fade, the midfield masters team. You gotta love that color scheme. It's a great one. The TC8 boys in that iconic black and green color scheme, always recognizable on track. The PHR Taxi boys, the Love of Lexus team. It's a disadvantaged car, but it's just a joy to drive. It sounds great. Might be the best sounding car on the track, and with that subtle, that understated but classy livery, DJ Watts and Curtis Lee representing the Lexus here in Season 12. The Bailey Mobile, of course. The GRR Cool Runnings team of Mark Anthony Eaton and Sean Daniels, always a fan favorite. We got the Riot Motorsports boys. We got Mr. Jay Queasy, who's running a bit of a one-off. He normally runs the black and white. It's the homage to I believe it's the Red Arrows acrobatic flying team. He's rocking the kind of Gran Turismo red and white themed livery. As we see our drivers now going side by side, getting ready as we come around the end of our sighting lap here. We're coming around this final right-hander onto the start and finish straight, getting ready to take the green flag. We're looking to see. So last race, Caleb Craig was a bit disadvantaged off the line and lost the position to John Laz, but doing well. He's well within his box. We see Mr. Yaron on the outside looking to potentially make a move into T1 as we creep up on the start-finish line, waiting for the green flag, and we are off and away for this 1-hour race at Brands Hatch. Uday Dillon making the quick move up the inside of the Yaron Ferrari up into P2 immediately. Trying to keep it nice and tidy. We see the Lexus trying to make moves around the outside of T1. Everybody doing well, keeping it respectful. We see a little bit of drama. We've got, I believe that was a Mercedes. And, oh no, this is Russell Allen of the Plan E Racing Porsche team off at T1. This is one of our team championship contenders. Not a good look out of him, unfortunately. Hoping to make a bit of a comeback here. He's got plenty of time, don't worry about it. We had some pit lane starters because of some penalties. We're not too worried about those at first. Jumping back up to the front. So Mr. Caleb Craig, you see there at the top of your screen, running away with P1 a little bit, trying to make a break from Mr. Uday Dillon in P2. Jason Yaron dropped down to P3. We've got John Laz, P4, Martin Riggs, P5. Followed closely by DJ Watts, who did make that move around the outside, getting himself up into P6 around Zodi Fade. You see there. As we come across the line, this is the end of our first lap. A very short track, Brands Hatch. Already lap 2. Trying to keep an eye on what's going on with the Deltas. Here we go. So John Laz off into the dirt a little bit. Oh no. Okay, so we're going to stay on the John Laz cam for a bit. Currently sitting in P4, doing his best to close the gap up to, you see the Ferrari 488 of Mr. Yaron ahead. So looking at the gaps on our screen, we have, so our top 4 of this race, we've got Craig Dillon, Yaron Laz making a bit of a break here. From P5, we've got Mr. Martin Riggs, who has been dropped by about a second and a half, and under big pressure from DJ Watts behind. We've got Riggs, Watts, and Zodi Fade currently battling for P5, 6, and 7 overall, while Caleb Craig in the meantime is trying to run away with this race. A little bit further up, so we see the gap at the front now. So this is from the perspective of Mr. Uday Dillon. You see the gap ahead. Caleb Craig already about a second off of the front of this black and gold Porsche, and trying to make a break from this race. So you see here, as we come around the start and finish straight, Uday Dillon losing touch a bit. Still kind of holding the gap. Only about 9/10 of a second here, separating the two. From the perspective now of Mr. Jason Yaron behind. Putting real pressure on Mr. Uday Dillon. As I scroll through my views, oh, it's an unmitigated disaster, ladies and gentlemen. Race control is just, it's failing. It's absolutely failing. Oh man, as if last week's connection issues weren't bad enough, ladies and gentlemen, this week we have issues with race control. It doesn't want to talk to the game. That's normally how I do my replays. That's normally how I do my camera angles. And it is saying thanks but no thanks. I'm going to restart the app while we sit here. Hopefully the audio isn't too awful. We'll take a look back. So this is now Mr. DJ Watts, P5. While we were dealing with our technical issues, so we've got Watts fade from Riggs now in P7. I believe he has slipped a bit, my memory, if my memory serves. We've got the number 296 car off at turn 1 in the dirt. I'm just trying to call out things that I see on the minimap. But yeah, so our top group, our top 4 drivers, Craig Dillon, Yaron Laz, kind of, they're walking away from DJ Watts now. 2.5 seconds, the gap between P4 and P5. Oh dear. Okay, Darren Robichaud saying he doesn't hear engine sounds. That's okay. It's probably for the best, because with this camera view, it would be all up in your ear. So looking up ahead, so Uday Dillon on Caleb Craig now. The gap at the front has extended to 2 seconds now over the line. Caleb Craig, 2.3 seconds essentially. Caleb Craig in this, the comic Bentley, absolutely rolling the rest of the group here. Well done to him. 52 minutes though left on the clock. A long race still ahead of us. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? I suppose we'll just do a quick scroll back. So Uday Dillon, P2. Jason Yaron. So this was, so this was our top leaderboard time going into the race. Currently sitting P3 overall. So still a respectable performance out of him. And again, so this is a team. Both of the Yaron brothers actually have had just a ton of misfortune this season. They've had incidents. They've actually had, if you remember back to the Red Bull Ring, where they managed to somehow make contact with each other after a small spin in T1, but doing well in this race. At least we have Mr. Jason Yaron up in P3, Jeremy Yaron down in P20, hoping to make a bit of a jump up. So we've got John Laz still well in touch. Again, this is our overall points leader. So P4, excellent points on the board for him. If anybody knows the keyboard shortcut to get back into Helicam, that would be much appreciated. Because this is not it. I do not want to spend the rest of the race seeing P2. Oh yeah. No, not it. All right, gosh, it's a disaster, but that's okay, boys. We're still hanging on. So, wow, we already see, this is crazy. We already see blue flag traffic ahead. We see Uday Dillon. Oh no, John Laz. Because of the traffic ahead, I'm not sure if that was Richie Wood or not, but he held up Uday Dillon, which held up Jason Yaron, which caused John Laz to get into the back of him. DJ Watts now the opportunist, getting himself up into P4 in the meantime. Crazy scenes here. So looking ahead, yeah, so this is Jason Yaron. The driver that you see ahead on track is a blue flag, somehow managing to get himself lapped, doing well. Okay, so here we see him pulling off. Okay, so John Ansom. This was one of our... I don't know. Thank you very much to Mr. Cvux99 in the chat. F3 getting me back. Oh no, Jason Yaron! Disaster has struck! That was our top leaderboard time, the number 554 car. Jason Yaron off into the dirt after the fast left-hander there in Sector 3. We're going to skip all the way back. How many places did he lose, ladies and gentlemen? P14! Are you kidding me? Jason Yaron. An absolute unmitigated disaster. The man we all expected to have a solid podium on the board couldn't keep it on track. You hate to see it. We're going to come over here and see what happens if I hit this button. It should... beats the heck out of me, but I hate to see it. Oh my goodness. So in the meantime, so his brother there, so the Yaron brothers now almost reunited, P14 and P19. We see Jeremy Yaron here in the other Ferrari 488. If we can jump back up ahead, this is awful. I apologize to everybody on stream, but it took us that long to get back up to Mr. Caleb Craig, who is absolutely running away with this race. The gap to P2 right now, 5.5 seconds already after only 8 laps. Caleb Craig in the Comic Racing Bentley. He ate his Wheaties this morning. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this man is on fire. He wants that overall win. He's not just going for the silver championship. He wants silver, he wants overall, he wants gold, he wants teams. This man looking for a clean sweep of not just this race, but of this whole season. Caleb Craig in the number 568 Bentley, putting in the work. Beats the heck out of me. So Scrolling back, taking a look at P2. Again, this is Mr. Uday Dillon, still hanging out. The gap, so obviously the gap ahead, pretty big. But the gap behind even, so from P2 to P3, Uday Dillon to DJ Watts, we've got 2.6 second mark. 2.6 seconds. But the gap behind, so on your screen there, we've got DJ Watts, John Laz, and Zodi Fade, all covered by less than a second. So this is the hottest on-track battle right now. This is P3, 4, and 5. John Laz, again, our championship leader overall, hoping to score some strong points here. Man, Caleb Craig, though, I mean, I can't do the math in my head right now, but I would imagine with the 110 points you earn from finishing P1, plus the 1 point for getting pole, plus currently, you see it on your screen there, the purple lap being held by Mr. Caleb Craig. He's on for 112 points for this race, which you would expect would put him up into a P1 overall. John Laz is going to have to hustle if he's going to try to hold on to this overall championship here for Division 3. Currently up behind Mr. DJ Watts, the gap ahead, only about 0.3 of a second. They are dropping Mr. Zodi Fade behind, the gap behind extending to, at least at the previous timing mark, was about a second. As they come across the line here, we'll see as it updates, half a second ahead, 1 second behind. Laz from Fade, we've got Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton, 2.3 seconds behind. Followed closely behind by Mr. Jay Queasy in that beautiful Nissan GTR. You love to see the off-meta cars. They've got a little bit of help from the custom BOP here at SRA this season. So they are competitive, the Bentley, the Lexus, the Nissan GTR, and they're beautiful cars. We love to have them on the grid. So Jay Queasy right up behind Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton as they come down the longest straight on this track, this back straight here, coming up into Sector 3. Still not long enough to get any sort of an overlap. Jay Queasy not able to pull alongside Eaton himself, under a bit of a threat from Mr. Colin Shea, who is behind P8 in that Stefaz Designs Champion Motorsports Ferrari. Well, that was a very loose on the rear end. Jay Queasy doing well to hang on to his car through that fast right-hander, but now very vulnerable to the Ferrari behind as we see some additional drama. You can see it on your minimap. I don't think I need to go find it with the camera. That is the number 545 car of Mr. Jason Yaron, who had another off track. Oh, you hate to see it. As we come across the start-finish line here, we will see the positions update. You see now P20. From number 1 on the practice leaderboards to number 20 on the track, Mr. Jason Yaron. F's in the chat for the Ferrari 488. The action here on track, though, Jay Queasy doing well to defend from Colin Shea. They were very close, side by side for a second there. Jay Queasy doing well to fight off the challenge and has now created a bit of a gap. Let's check up ahead. So back in with John Laz. So this is the battle for P3, 4, and 5. We've got Mr. DJ Watts, P3, followed closely behind by Mr. John Laz, unable to make the overtake as of yet, but not giving up, still about a half a second behind, maybe a little bit less than as they come around this final corner here into the start-finish straight. John Laz well up into the slipstream. So thinking about overtaking opportunities on this track, I mean, I don't know about you guys, as we see Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton coming in for an early pit. 40 minutes left on the clock, so about 2/3 done with this race. An early pit out of Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton, maybe going for a little bit of an undercut here. So John Laz, if you were John Laz and you wanted to make an overtake on a Lexus, first off, the Lexus, amazing straight line speed, really hard to do, but of all the points on this track where an overtake would be possible, I would expect the hairpin of turn 2 kind of your only opportunity to do it, and that's it, right? This track, it reminds me a bit, if I may, SRA Nation, hypothesize, we've got a relatively skinny track, relatively hard to pass on, grass and barriers close on either side. Is anybody getting Nordschleife vibes out of this? Not a whole lot of passing, and death just right around the corner if you drop a tire onto that grass and lose traction. Speaking from experience a bit, I've hit some of the barriers around both this track and the Nordschleife. I am a barrier expert. So now that we've got some blue flag traffic, so Caleb Craig, the gap to Uday Dillon behind is approaching 10 seconds. Caleb Craig still walking away with this race. We saw the driver behind on track was Curtis Lee, overall P25, so he's blue flagged, not a threat to Mr. Caleb Craig ahead. We've got Mr. Quentin Shatner, same thing, blue flag driver, Almeida. There we go. Now we've got back to Mr. Uday Dillon. Look at the gap, ladies and gentlemen, that Caleb Craig has pulled on P2 as they come across the timing line here for sector 2 and 3. The gap is 10.5 seconds. 10.5 seconds after 20 minutes. Well, that could be a good explanation of why Mr. Uday Dillon struggling a bit with track limits and now vulnerable to P3. So at one time, that gap from P2 and P3 was almost 3 seconds. Now DJ Watt's right up behind the struggling and overtaking. The struggling Porsche of Uday Dillon. On-track overtakes for P2 and 3, and John Laz also taking the opportunity to make the overtake, promoting himself up into the podium positions. Now P2 DJ Watts, P3 John Laz, P4 Uday Dillon, who is again off into the grass, and you gotta wonder if you're Zodi Fade and you're seeing what's happening up above. Man, I'm smelling blood in the water. I'm saying, hey, I am absolutely going for this overtake. I'm pushing as hard as I can to see if I can make up a little bit of on-track position. Looking back further, we've got Jay Queasy, who has pulled a 2-second gap to Sean Daniels behind in P7. We've got Mr. Wilder Vargas of the TC8 Racing Team still hanging out in P8. Well done to him. Close behind, we've got Mr. Pat Cockcroft of the other Plan E Racing Porsche. We saw his teammate Russell Allen spinning off a bit early in the race, but P9 from the other Plan E Racing Porsche. Still respectable points from them in the team championship. We've got Chris Sweeney, followed closely behind by a blue flag driver, so don't worry too much about it. Ooh! As we see Mr. Wilder Vargas off into the grass and losing time to, whoa, Pat Cockcroft! Oh, Pat Cockcroft. He got a little squirrely getting out onto the grass. Contact with Chris Sweeney and doing the gentlemanly thing of waiting for Sweeney, I suppose, to get back on track. Sweeney immediately ducking into the pits, but for both of those drivers, that is a lot of time lost overall just for the amount of time it took to get straightened back out and back on track. So Pat Cockcroft a bit disconnected from the drivers ahead. You see the driver behind, the other Yarin brother. This is Mr. Jeremy Yarin in P11 overall, but again, this was after some pits, so we'll have to see how everything shakes out after all pit stops are complete. complete. Got Phil Brown, Mr. Zipperburn, P13. We've got Yaron, P14. It's showing on the board right now. There's our other Plan E Porsche, P27, Mr. Russell Allen. So he has completed his mandatory pit stop. We'll see how that shakes out for him. We've got Holmes Music, Alberts Wood. We're just going through the whole order, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry about that. We've got Mr. Derek Schweppe on track. He has completed his mandatory pit stop. Mark Anthony Eaton, Mr. Riggs, Mr. Shea, and so here we have Mr. Caleb Craig still going strong. So the gap now, so we saw the drama there with Uday Dillon where Mr. DJ Watts was able to get past. So the new P2, Mr. DJ Watts is showing about, I want to say about 13 seconds back of Mr. Caleb Craig, who is just cruising. 13.9 seconds now to P2. You know, a little bit of blue flag traffic here, but this is D3, so everybody is, you know, by now we've learned to be respectful. Hey, there's a driver behind. It's P1. Not only is he P1 overall, but he's going for P1 in the championship, so do not get in this man's way. Mr. Caleb Craig, he's a force to be reckoned with, and he cannot be stopped. So if we're looking at our timing screen on the left side of our screen, we had John Laz, who was P3, has come in for an early pit stop, potentially going for a bit of an undercut. John Laz now, you're seeing P16 on your leaderboard overall, but he is the top of our drivers who have made their mandatory pit stop. We will have to see where he comes out in relation to the man he was right behind on track, DJ Watts, who, speak of the devil now, DJ Watts coming into the pits, the teammate of that man, Curtis Lee, as we go back through our screen. There he is, DJ Watts. So this is the man who was running P2 overall, pitting from P2, taking his one mandatory set of tires. We're going to stay on board with him because we want to see where will he come out in relation to Mr. John Laz. Looking at the mini-map on the side of my screen, and actually I can just do this. Here we go. So this is John Laz, who went for the undercut on DJ Watts coming out of the final turn, the final right-hander onto the start-finish straight. We see the Lexus in the pits is moving. DJ Watts, there he is. He comes out on track just right ahead of John Laz, but you figure with the fresher tires, the warmer tires now, John Laz, I would have bet my entire life savings that John Laz would have been able to make that move into P2 with the warmer tires. But DJ Watts holding on, fending off the undercut from John Laz. Well done to him, maintaining essentially P2 overall in this race, because really, if we're being honest, you would not expect Caleb Craig would be losing any position to Watts or to Laz, considering that at the time they pit there was about a 14-second gap. Oh man, Caleb Craig, he's just too good. We're going to stay on board for a little bit here though. So John Laz, DJ Watts, all the curb on the inside as they come into this slow left-hander, coming into these short straight before our penultimate right-hander. I mean, I understand that the straight line speed of this Lexus is pretty ferocious, but John Laz, man, are you gonna get aggressive on the brakes, or is he just happy to take home some championship points? You know, you compare it to, I don't know if any of you YouTube viewers out there do any MotoGP watching, if you follow that series at all. Currently, right now, we've got what do we got? Martin and Bagnaia, who are taking turns throwing their motorcycles off of the side of the track and throwing away championship points. John Laz saying, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go for any sort of crazy moves right now. P3 overall is still great points. That's, I believe, 92 points for a P3 finish. Hey, if you had to choose between P3 and throwing it off the track and potentially finishing P25, John Laz know where his bread is buttered. And just staying right behind Mr. DJ Watts. You know, we would love to see a little bit more action, but I do not blame him for the conservative strategy. Taking a look back, we've got Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton running a provisional P4 after pits. Zodi Fade right behind, Martin Riggs, Shea, and now, so Caleb Craig. So looking at our clock, coming up now on the halfway mark of this race, 30 minutes and 30 seconds left on the board. It would be at about this time, if I was Caleb Craig, I would be considering pitting. He says, no thank you, sir. You don't know anything about strategy. I know more than you. To be fair, he is faster than me, so I don't blame him. Caleb Craig saying wants to stay out for a little bit longer. He must still have plenty of life left in those tires. The gap now, so Uday Dillon has also yet to pit. He was running P4 before Watts and Laz came in for their pit stops. Look at that. The gap between P1 and P2, 17 seconds. I mean, it's hardly enough time to even be on the board before Caleb Craig passes the timing bar for the second sector. It's almost hard to keep track of how far behind. 18.1 seconds now between Craig and Dillon, P1 and P2. I don't know how he does it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a marvel to behold. So P16 and 17, a pretty close on-track battle here. We've got Lee and Shatner, the midfield masters, and Panda Racing Lexus, both of them relatively high up in the team championship. So even though this is an on-track battle for just P16 and 17, all of these points matter. Ooh, Quentin Shatner getting an excellent run out of the final turn. Had to lift a little bit to avoid contact with Lee. But doing well to keep it clean. Keeping it on track. We've got Wilder Vargas, Almeida, McKechnie, Phil Brown. And in the meantime, we did see our race leader, Mr. Caleb Craig, has come into the pits. Also, Uday Dillon showing on my screen as having come into the pits. So this is P1 and P2 overall, now taking their one set of mandatory tires. We will have to see where they come back out on track in relation to the competition. I mean, to be fair, we're not too worried about it, right? So as Caleb Craig now drops down off of the air jacks, if we scroll back through the order, so this is now DJ Watts, who will be essentially our P2 driver. It's not even close. There is no drama to manufacture on this one. DJ Watts and Caleb Craig still nowhere near each other on track. What we will have to do, so as Caleb Craig comes through this short left-hander and crosses the timing line for Sector 2 right now, so now we'll go back to Mr. DJ Watts and we will see the gap after pit stops from Caleb Craig to DJ Watts, 8.2 seconds. You see it on the board there on the left, ladies and gentlemen. Caleb Craig, absolutely unstoppable now with a fresher set of tires compared to the drivers behind him on track. Man, just an absolutely dominant performance. I wonder though, so Uday Dillon, who at one time, he started out running P2. He got passed by Watts and Laz and was running P4. After pit stops, has come back out on track. You see it on the screen on your left. P21. He must have had. I can't imagine the cause. Maybe there was damage. Maybe he missed his pit box and had to reverse back into it. But Uday Dillon a huge loss of positions from P4 to P21. An absolute disaster from him. Checking back our new so looking at the board, so Pat Cockcroft, we have seen this in previous races. He loves to go long on his first set of tires. He's showing P1 on the board. After his pit stop, surely that won't be the case. So what I'm going to call P1, Caleb Craig, P2, DJ Watts, P3, John Laz, and now we're looking at P4, Zodi Fade in the Midfield Masters McLaren. A bit of a lonely race from him. Not particularly close to P3, John Laz ahead, a 4.4 second gap there, a 3 second gap behind to Mr. Martin Riggs in P5. So Fade, Riggs, and now Jay Queasy would be your P6. Not a whole lot of action here in the midfield, though Colin Shea doing his best to make an impression on the Nissan GTR of the Bottle of Water Racing team of Mr. Jay Queasy and his teammate Mr. Rosenthal, currently showing P18 on my screen. You know, again, this track, it's just not doing it for me, ladies and gentlemen. The straights are not long enough. The braking zones are not long enough. I would love to see Colin Shea making an impact on this race, but, you know, again, this is P2. This is really the only opportunity that I can see. This is kind of just a procession, and it's not even an exciting one, especially because I don't have a working race control that can show me where the close battles are. Oh, it's a disaster. So, looking now at P2, DJ Watts, who, if you remember, came out of the pits right in front of John Laz, absolutely nothing between the two, has built himself actually a very good gap. The gap between P2 and P3 right now, 2.2 seconds between Watts and Laz. You love to see it. The Panda Racing Love of Lexus black and white car of DJ Watts putting in the work. Do we expect him to be fast enough to make an impact on Caleb Craig? Probably not, considering the gap is about 10 seconds right now. We're going to wait for DJ Watts to come across the line to update. So 9.5 seconds, I apologize, the gap between Caleb Craig and DJ Watts. I mean, how does he do it from the wrong side of the car? He's just unstoppable. As a silver driver, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Silver driver Caleb Craig, silver driver Martin Riggs, and Jay Queasy showing P1, 5, and 6 overall in this race. Very well done to all. So, Mr. Martin Alberts, he's a blue flag. We don't have to worry about that too much. DJ Watts still doing the thing over John Laz. Zodi Fade, Martin Riggs, Jay Queasy, Colin Shea still staying close in touch with that Nissan GTR up ahead, but not really able to put him off. We've got P8 and 9, the Cool Runnings McLaren boys, Mark Anthony Eaton and Sean Daniels. You love to see it. An excellent result for the team, pulling down some good points from them. We've got the other Midfield Masters McLaren of Mr. Quentin Shatner, as called out in the chat. So well done to call it out. Shatner with a pit lane start has gotten himself up into P10 overall in this race. An impressive performance out of him. You know, we saw him earlier on in this season battling for some good positions, some good points. I believe it was Paul Ricard. He was fighting for the podium, so good to see him back this season, putting in a good performance here at Brands Hatch. Looking a little further back, we've got Chris Sweeney, who we saw got into a bit of a, I'm going to use the term kerfuffle with Pat Cockcroft. currently hanging out in P11 under pressure though from Mr. Wilder Vargas. This is a battle on track for P11 and 12. Mr. Vargas within slipstream range. This would be as we come out onto the longest straight of this track. We've got a yellow flag behind. That's Mr. Almeida in the PHR Taxi BMW. Had a bit of a moment there. We'll see how many positions he ends up dropping. We've got the Bailey Mobile. Got to give some love to Mr. Justin McKechnie, Ghost Rider Racing, Bailey Mobile, BMW M4. It's a good car, it's a good livery, and Mr. Justin McKechnie, a good guy, a controller warrior. By the way, there aren't many of them. We've got Mr. Jay Queasy, plays on a controller. We've got Mr. McKechnie playing on a controller. I'm not sure if there's any else in this race, but I would love to give him a shout out if I could, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but Queasy and McKechnie, super fast drivers, even though they are, well, you got to say it, a bit handicapped because of their input device. We see Mr. Curtis Lee here hanging out in P14 under pressure from P15 behind Mr. Phil Brown in the other PHR Taxi BMW. A little further back, we've got the other bottle of water, Nissan GTR of Mr. Justin Rosenthal. Love that kind of, what would you call it? The Miami Vice color scheme, kind of vaporware themed GTR. Beautiful livery out of that team. Mr. Zipperburn representing OBDA, currently P17, followed behind, again. So I really wish my race control was working, because it shows me time stopped in pits. I really want to know what happened to Uday Dillon that dropped him from P18 to P4. A shame, because he had a great qualifying performance, a great first half of the race, and just unable to convert it into any points. Looking back, we've got Almeida, we've got Holmes, we've got Mr. Pat Cockcroft back on track battling with all the other just tragedy of this race. Jason Yaron from P1 on the practice leaderboards, P2 in the race at one point, but now P22 behind Mr. Pat Cockcroft. Hey, there's one more race left in the season, one more opportunity for both Jason and Jeremy Yaron to put in a good result with this Ferrari 488. I want to see it. I hope everybody else out there in YouTube land does as well. Steven Music P24. John Ansem. We've got Cortez has decided against continuing. I believe Schweppe has done the same. We've got Allen and Wood battling for P26 and 27. But back up to, this is once again your race leader, Caleb Craig, who has now pulled actually the gap to P2. So last I paid attention to it, it was 9.5 seconds. DJ Watts has managed to pull back 0.3 of that, bringing it down to 9.2 seconds. If there were 50 laps left in this race, that would be enough to maybe get us a fight. I hate to say it, but with 17 minutes left in this race, Caleb Craig is kind of just in cruise mode. Now 9.6 seconds the gap. DJ Watts, John Laz still hanging out in P3, 2.4 seconds the gap between P2 and P3. On track, we've got blue flag. So Zodi Fade, P4 still, in that beautiful orange and blue. You got to call it powder blue. It's baby blue. McLaren, this midfield Masters car, running some decent lap time, 4 seconds adrift from P3. A bit of a lonely race, because further back we've got Mr. Martin Riggs 3 seconds back of P4. Not a whole lot of action here in our top 5. The closest, highest battle is still I feel like it's been 10 minutes since we've seen these two guys in this exact same position, and not a whole lot happening on this Brands Hatch circuit. Colin Shea and Jay Queasy locked in mortal battle on track, but unable to make any sort of overlap in that Stefaz Designs Championship Motorsports Ferrari 296, just kind of flying formation with the bottle of water Nissan GTR of Mr. Jay Queasy ahead. Maybe by the end of the race we'll see something happen, but I doubt it. Let's look back. We got, again, Mark Anthony Eaton and Sean Daniels still hanging out. Caleb Craig. We'll stay on board with him for a second because I feel like, so in a normal race where my race control is working and I'm watching the deltas on my screen and I'm trying to highlight all of the close battles on track because I feel like that's the most entertaining way to do a stream, I feel like Mr. Caleb Craig hasn't gotten enough airtime because he's never close enough to his competitors on track to catch my attention. So just a moment here. Caleb Craig in the Comic Racing Bentley, just consistent, just strong. 10.3 seconds the gap now between Caleb Craig and DJ Watts. You love to see it. I love to see the support from the Craig family in the YouTube chat. I know we've had a couple of Craig names over the course of this season popping up, and this is the time. Mr. Caleb Craig just putting in the laps. If I push this button again to go to a different camera, a little bit closer up view of that beautiful Comic Motorsports livery. Coming up on a bit of blue flag traffic here. I'm sure it won't hold him up too much. I believe that is Mr. John Ansom ahead in the McLaren with a Plan E Racing Porsche up ahead. They won't hold him up too much. They're good guys. Not a whole lot of drama here for Mr. Caleb Craig, who is just Mr. Consistent in this race. A little further back, we've got Mr. DJ Watts, who the gap now between P2 and P3 has come down a bit. So at one time it was almost 3 seconds between Watts and Laz. It's come down now to 1.8 seconds between Mr. DJ Watts and Mr. John Laz of the black and gold Porsche team. A little bit of a wiggle out of that Porsche through that fast turn 3, but keeping it well under control. Now the gap 1.5 seconds as we see it on screen. I don't know if I have the ability to go back and show, but that was the teammate of Mr. DJ Watts. That's Curtis Lee. Gonna go this way and see. So we have Mr. Jeremy Yaron off track. Also, Mr. Curtis Lee at the same time. You have to wonder if there was a bit of a coming together between the Lexus of Mr. Curtis Lee and the Ferrari. Look at the battle damage on the side of that car. The Ferrari 488 looking a little worse for wear, but still continuing. 12 minutes left in this race, currently running P24. Plenty of points to be gained from Mr. Jeremy Yaron. Scrolling back through, we got John Hanson, we got Mr. Russell Allen, who is now the driver on track ahead of Mr. Caleb Craig. Again, super respectful driving out of all of our D3 drivers, so not expecting these blue flags to hold up our race leader at all. Richie Wood of the BD Red Eye Boddington's McLaren. The gap now, P2 and P3 has come down even further. John Laz within a second of the Lexus of DJ Watts now. John Laz again went for the undercut at about the halfway point on DJ Watts, so he is on the older set of tires. He has, I believe, 2 laps more on his tires, but managing to claw back the gap up to P2. We'll have to keep an eye on that battle. Looking back, we got Zodi Fade still just hanging out. It's kind of in hot lap mode, not a whole lot around him. Martin Riggs, Jay Queasy, and look at that, Colin Shea still right up behind that Nissan GTR, who, it must be said, as we're looking at this battle on track, Jay Queasy has drawn quite near to the Bentley ahead of Mr. Martin Riggs. This is now a 3-way battle for P5, 6, and 7 on track. Riggs from Queasy from Shea. We'll have to see if any overtakes are even possible. Looking now, we've got Daniels from his teammate Mark Anthony Eaton, who is himself under intense pressure from Mr. Quentin Shatner. Again, had that pit lane start up into P10, and he's clearly got the pace, has now drawn right up behind Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton. The gap between the two of them, about 0.4 of a second. Eaton going a bit wide there, you saw, through turn 4, but yep, not enough on this track to really be a problem. Mark Anthony Eaton, you would have to assume, as long as he doesn't make any huge mistakes, as long as he keeps it on track, should be able to fight off this challenge from Quentin Shatner and maintain P9. But as we watch Quentin Shatner looking outside, a little bit of blue flag traffic ahead, so on track. This is Martin Alberts, who does well to get out of the way. Very well done, very respectful driving, very mindful, very demure from our blue flag drivers. As now Quentin Shatner right up behind Mark Anthony Eaton, looks to the outside at turn 1, has to back off. That is not an overtaking zone, but will he be able to get the drive and make an impact into turn 2? No. No, of course not. Excellent call out from our YouTube chat. So I believe earlier on in the race, the last time we looked, Mark Anthony Eaton was running ahead of his teammate Sean Daniels. We might have some papaya rules in the team radio. Sean Daniels has gotten now P8 over his teammate, who is under pressure still from Quentin Shatner. Excellent racecraft from Shatner. So he made the move to the inside, not because he was actually intending to go for the dive bomb, but because he just wanted to get in the mirrors of Mark Anthony Eaton. And it almost worked. Mark Anthony Eaton missed the apex by a bit, kept it on track, is maintaining the position. Now 8 minutes left in this race. Mark Anthony Eaton under a huge amount of pressure. We are going to attempt in the meantime to look up ahead to our podium battle, just as tight as any of the other on-track battles. This is DJ Watts from John Laz, 0.4 of a second separating these two drivers. But gosh, again, it has to be said, John Laz hasn't been the most aggressive in this race. Seems to be content to just kind of fly formation with the Lexus of DJ Watts ahead. He is himself under absolutely no pressure. The driver behind, Zodi Fade, 6.2 seconds adrift in P4. So yeah, you figure from a tactical point of view, Mr. John Laz looking pretty happy to just take a nice P3 behind DJ Watts. Got Martin Riggs still hanging out on track in P5. We've had an overtake. Ladies and gentlemen, we missed it while we were looking at Shatner and Eaton, but Colin Shea has somehow done the work. he has gotten past Jay Queasy, who he was stuck behind for nigh on 20 minutes. Colin Shea now promoting himself up into 6th place, past the Bottle of Water Racing GTR of Mr. Jay Queasy. So well done and fair play to him. Colin Shea with the big moves up into P6. Looking ahead now, John Laz, DJ Watts. Yeah, he's still behind him. Let's look a bit further back. So, this is Sweeney now attempting a move around the outside. So Shatner, while we were looking at the battle ahead, we missed another overtake. So Eaton lost the position to Quentin Shatner and is now set to lose another position. This is Chris Sweeney in the BMW M4. Had the inside line through turn 4, couldn't make it stick. Now Mark Anthony Eaton has the inside line coming into this 3rd sector here, maintains the position. So far he's only lost 1 position now. He lost P9 to Quentin Shatner. Mark Anthony Eaton still holding on to P10, but still under intense threat. Chris Sweeney looking super racy back there. Eaton surely struggling on these tires. You figure if Sweeney gets past, that's Vargas you see in the TC8 Racing McLaren, who is ready to pounce. Eaton looking at potentially 2 positions here that he could lose if he slips up. 4.5 minutes left in this race. Sweeney, right, he's so close to the back of that McLaren. Will he make the move into P2? Yes, he does. We see it into the hairpin. Side by side now. Mark Anthony Eaton super fast. Maintains position around the outside and will have the advantage coming into this left-hander, but Sweeney around the outside off track. What do we think about off-track overtakes? Don't ask Lando Norris. For him, it was a 5-second penalty, but for Chris Sweeney, a little bit of contact behind Wilder Vargas making the move up the inside of Eaton, but managing to keep it on track, both Eaton and Vargas. Mark Anthony Eaton at one time was running P9, has now found himself in P12 with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left in this race. You would think that that would be the last of the bleeding, seeing as Mr. McKechnie in P13 is about 6 seconds back. So Eaton, you hate to see it, but it should be over. He should still be able to finish this race with a very respectable points haul, P12, and remember his teammate ahead. Oh dear, we're looking to find Mr. Sean Daniels in P8. So P8 and P12 for the GRR Cool Runnings McLarens. It's a great livery, and it's a respectable result for these 2 drivers. Assuming that Quentin Shatner, 1.5 seconds back. The gap has closed, though, between the start-finish line and that Sector 2 timing line. The gap dropped there from 1.5 seconds to 1.1 seconds. Quentin Shatner, about 3 laps left in this race. So if I'm looking at my mini-map on the left there, our leader, Caleb Craig, crossing the start-finish line now with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. That will be 2 more race laps. So Quentin Shatner and Sean Daniels will have to finish this lap and do 2 more. Will Quentin Shatner, is that enough time to make an impression for P8? The gap is still 1 second, but it looks just visually to be dropping. Quentin Shatner trying to gain even more points in this race, hoping to do the work. Just looking at our timing screen now. So DJ Watts has dropped John Laz a bit. The gap now between P2 and P3, almost a second, 9/10 of a second. So that we were thinking John Laz, maybe he would make a move. He's backed off a bit. Zodi Fade, 6 seconds back of that. Colin Shea right up behind Mr. Martin Riggs. I wonder if we can zoop ahead to see what's going on here. So this is a on-track battle for P5, 6, and 7 between Riggs, Shea, and Queasy. Super close on track, but with only this lap plus one more left in the race, Colin Shea running out of time to make an overtake on Mr. Martin Riggs, who, it must be said, is defending. Oh, he's slow coming out of that second to last left-hander. Shea unable to make the overlap in time for the final corner. So as they come across the line here, starting this final racing lap, this is our top and closest on-track battle. P5, 6, 7, Martin Riggs trying to hold off Colin Shea into the hairpin, perhaps the last good overtaking opportunity. Shea nowhere near the Bentley of Mr. Martin Riggs. You have to imagine he will be able to hold on to that position. Jay Queasy waiting in the wings just in case there's any contact made to take an opportunity to take a position or two. Looking back, we've got Daniels and Shatner. The gap is only, you could separate them by a car's length at times. But Sean Daniels, as time expires on the board, and Caleb Craig will be coming now. We see it on our screen on the mini-map coming out of our final turn. Caleb Craig coming across the start-finish line and winning this Brands Hatch race. Quentin Shatner pushing hard well into the runoff, but I don't see it happening for him. Looking up ahead, same thing. Colin Shea not able to make a move into P5. So we've got Craig from Watts, Laz, Zodi Fade P4, Martin Riggs P5, Shea Queasy. We were looking for Sean Daniels. There he is. No way. Final turn. Quentin Shatner stealing P8 from Sean Daniels, who must have gotten a disastrous run out of the final corner. Oh, what an amazing move there from Quentin Shatner to steal P8. Excellent work out of him, and I'm super glad we at least caught a glimpse of the tail end of that move. So we've got Craig, Watts, Laz, Fade, Shea. Oh, excellent conclusion from that race there. And wow. The pit start legend indeed. So fantastic work from all of our Division 3 drivers. A tough track, Brands Hatch, and our drivers putting on a show there. The Bentley boys, P1 and P5, pulling in some great points, not only for the individual, but also for the team championship. John Laz, P3, would assume it will drop him down into P2 in the overall championships. Going into our final round, Caleb Craig sitting pretty and hoping for a good result in that final race. Speak of the devil, Mr. Caleb Craig, I hope you don't mind me kidnapping you for a quick interview. You're here in the commentator's booth.
Hello.
Hello. So you do have quite the fan club in our YouTube chat. It's great to see the family support. But the first question that they're bringing up for you is so how many poles have you had this season, and how many wins have you been able to convert that into?
4 and 4, minus last week because I got a penalty.
4 for 4. So doing the inverse Lando Norris and actually converting all of those excellent qualifying positions into race wins. So well done. I mean, so I don't know if there was too much action for you that race. It seemed like you kind of walked away with that one.
The only scary thing I had was a lap car waiting to the very last second to yield. Other than that, I was kind of Sunday cruising.
Kind of Sunday cruising. Well, you know, I considering how many people you probably had to lap that race, one isn't so bad, right?
I really didn't have a lot of lap traffic. With all the pit cycles, I really didn't run into but maybe like 5 or 6 people the entire race.
Well, fair enough. That is true. So you did come in for a little later pit stop, had the fresh tires towards the end, and just kind of cruise. So going into now our final race, it'll be Kyalami, week 8. How are you feeling considering you're top of the points right now?
I've never done a single lap at Kyalami. So
oh no!
Figure that out. We'll find out next week.
Okay, well, you better get to practice. I want to see a shoey out of you.
I will try.
Attaboy. All right, I'll send you on back. Thank you for the interview, and congratulations again on your race.
Appreciate it.
All right, well done. Out of our race winner, Mr. Caleb Craig. You love to see it. So, once again, for the folks at home, there is one race left in this season. It will be Kyalami. It's a super fun track, super technical, super demanding, and it will be great for overtakes, unlike this Brands Hats race. So tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Hope to see you there. It's going to be a great one. My name has been Philip Mueller. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Thank you all for putting up with the troubles. It's been 2 weeks in a row. I still enjoy doing this, and I hope that you still enjoy hanging out with me. Until next time, adios.